Right then, TT videos. The last video we left off in the dyno. Probably didn't explain a lot of stuff how we needed to, but that'll come in the next video or at the end of this one. I'm not sure. We'll see. So Paul's managed to put everything back together. It got ready for the dyno, or nearly ready for the dyno, and then we had a bit of free time. So we've rushed it over here. Not quite how I wanted it to happen, but we're here now. Not even a clamp on the inlet, but we'll get all that sort of stuff sorted when we need to. So the engine pretty much is unchanged since it had everything done. So in theory, we shouldn't really be having a problem. But if you remember the last time it were out racing, the gearbox were just playing up, which on the last track day we had the gearbox were playing up as well. So we think we've found the problem. That's linked to this connector down here. This one here on the front of the shifter, which is a strange connector. It's not an easy one to get hold of, and definitely not an easy one to repair, but still going to bracket that up somewhere as well. But yeah, so the reason it's over here as well, there's a few bits of tidying up that we're wanting to do. We've got rid of the clocks, as we've talked about before, and put them under the dash, but we want to get rid of those completely and get rid of the component protection, so that because we had the gearbox issues and we think we've figured them out, this was a quick dyno test to see if that were going to work. And it seems to be working fine. The gears are changing, everything. It was basically a potato last time and just kept doing whatever it wanted. So we think that's sorted. What we're wanting to do is change this gearbox for a shorter ratio one from like it's going to end up in a four-wheel drive TT, the one that we've got, but you could get it from a Golf R, Leon Cupra. But all of the shorter ratios, they've all got they're either four-wheel drive or they've got the diff, which we've not got. So we're going to have to play with that. So I'm trying to talk about the same thing but in two different trains. To get that gearbox to work, we'd have to do all the component checks. We need to take it to the dealership and messing about, and that means at the side of the track we can't just swap a gearbox if we have a problem, which isn't going to work. So we've got an emulator coming. I'm sure there'd be a better way of doing it. I think the TCRs do the emulation in the PDM. Not too sure. That's how I think it's done. But what we're doing, we're going to have like a plug-in emulator that goes on the CAN bus system and just tells the gearbox, yeah, we're happy, and tells the ECU, yeah, we're happy. So in theory, we can get rid of the dash from under. We've put it under the dash, but get rid of the clocks. We can get rid of the key steering lock. Get that. The key that was stashed inside the steering wheel, we can get rid of that in theory. And there's something else we could get rid of. There's another module somewhere that we can get rid of. I can't remember what it is now. Maybe I'm talking rubbish. Let Danny decide in editing. So yeah, that should make things a lot easier, a lot more straightforward if we've got fault finding to do. Or it might make it more complicated, like seems to be the problem. So this is a sort of initial dyno test, just make sure everything's working. So you saw the run earlier. This is what we've got. The green line is from before. The red line is what it's doing now. So this is the problem we've got going on here. It sounds like it's misfiring around here, which is a bit odd. Not sure what's going on there. So we're going to probably try and fix that first. But I absolutely hate these engines. Compared to a diesel, these are just, they've got all the complications of a diesel and not many benefits of a petrol that generally, as long as you've got good fuel and it seems to run, it seems to be causing us a little bit of hassle. Not sure what's going on. We'll figure it out, and then we can get the diff fitted to the gearbox. Because these have got Drexlers in, which are hideously expensive. And when I was talking to the Drexler guys, I think it's got a really low torque in the diff. I think it should be a lot higher than it is. It's like 50 newtons or something stupid like that, which is not a lot. We want nearer to 100, really. We could probably go more. So we've ended up getting an SQS diff, which we'll look at all that stuff when we've got it out, get that fired in, run it again, make sure I iron any other creases out, and then next week sometime, I think mid next week, Tuesday next week, we've got a track day, a proper test day at Blyton Park for this. And if Paul is up, maybe the Golf, but we'll see. A lot to do. It's still not ready to go. I still think there's another day at least to get this completely wrapped up, because I don't want to take it with some stuff done, some stuff not done. I want to fire everything if we can, get this gearbox in, get everything done. Still got the Verkline subframe to put on the front. So yeah, tons of work, but we'll keep hammering away. So, the TT's been back in the workshop for a little bit. Not sure how much of the footage Paul's been doing was filmed or we're going to put in. But anyway, that's Paul's problem. So, cut. Oh dear. I've got a confession. I didn't record myself putting harness in, but I'll assure you it's very easy. Anyway, and they crossed over because at that distance, Shroff's their cross. Anyway, just loads of little fiddly bits of crap again, all the finishing touches that nobody talks about on forums and stuff like that, and it's that hard to film. People don't film them either. But we're getting there. This is kind of pretty much the box of stuff that's not fitted yet that we need to sort. So we're going to take the snap-off boss off here, or we might just get another one. This is the Golf DSG steering wheel with the nice paddles on. Couple of cables to put on, wipers to put on, the OLED for the V-box, which that's going on when we've got a bracket that holds it to the roll cage, and the radio stuff for the when we're racing, steel radio, so we'll sort that out later. Arm net, not a big job. We're probably just going to do all this when we're at the track. It'd be easier just to, if we get a chance, we will. We'll do it before, but anyway, sort that out. We're not testing any of that stuff, but it might as well all be in. So, the main thing that Paul's got sorted, I'll just move it back, it's heavy as cardiac wheel. So the other thing he's done, we managed to mount this V-box bracket on, which we'll put a picture of what it looks like on the back. You can't really see it, but we made it so that we can unplug this and the cables all stay in position. And there's a strap that's got to come around here and hold it in, but it's pretty tight as it is anyway, because I think the printer warped it and what have you. But there's some brackets to go on the back. They're just printing at the minute. We'll get that in there. He's still got to re-end the air jacks because they're leaking. A couple of little bits of cables to just tie up a bit better. And the dash, we're just waiting on the emulator coming for the gearbox. So, subframe gearbox to do, which leads us on to what Paul's doing now. So, the Q7's still here. So this is the gearbox. So at the minute, this is the standard open differential. And then this is the SQS upgraded one that we're printing. So this is a plate diff, so not the same as a Quaife ATB, work totally differently. Have a look online, maybe Danny will put a link into something that shows how they work or whatever. But basically we need to get this in, but this is a four-wheel drive gearbox, so we've got a bit of faffing about. We'll take all the park brake stuff out, we always do on our gearboxes, but on the TCR cars they're all factory, which I don't like how you can put it into park. But anyway, so we'll get that sorted, have a good check, make sure the gearbox is all good, but it's not a massive job for Paul to do this, he's done tons of them now. We'll get this in, get it ready to rock, and then hopefully if the emulator comes we'll throw the gearbox in, but if not we'll just run it as it is. So the other thing that we've not talked about is what it did on the dyno and why it's off now. We had the sort of what looked like a misfire right at the top of the graph, so we'll put a picture of the graph up, you'll see it dropping off and not really smooth. Turns out that's something to do with the cam timing in the tune. Don't exactly know how it works. Some of it went over my head, but basically what Paul said to me on way into work this morning was it when you ask for 20 odd degrees of cam timing, you got 2, but if you ask for 2, you got 20 odds. So I don't know how that's happened. So put all that back to stock, and the power just stayed the same. So we're going to play with that again. We ran out of time on the dyno. Whether we get a chance to do out with before the track day, I don't know. At the test day, we'll see. But anyway, we'll let Paul get cracking with the gearbox, and then when he's finished the gearbox, he'll do the suspension. And then at the minute while we're filming this, he's just looking at the old dead engine, the Golf, so we'll go have a look at that. So, TT news. So Paul's just doing this at the minute, building all the Verkline front subframe up, because we never fitted it, because we're having a bit of issues with the arm lengths and stuff like that, but apparently it's right now. Don't know, we'll see. We're not going to get the track width we want, but it's going to be what the main idea is, get the front wider than the rear. That should help us with us turning. Should never have a wider rear than a front. So we'll get all that built up, get all that fitted. We did want to do that at the same time as the gearbox, but we've come up with a few little issues. Quickly run over here. Sorry, Paul. Sorry, Paul. So this bearing that we've got, it's normally that one. No matter how much thread lock you put on there, that ain't gonna be right. So we've ordered the correct bearing. Oh, we've ordered the correct bearing. Then we can put all that back on, get that fired in, and that should be ready. But if we go back over here, this is the mechatronics from that gearbox. So what we've been doing, we're doing a little bit of playing. Basically, if we have another look in here, sorry for dragging you around, Melly. Basically, this little thing here is the emulator that Paul's put on a plug somewhere. It's hiding up there, plug. But this is a little emulator that should stop the component protection, which we thought, maybe wrongly thought, that meant we could get rid of this, and it's not worked. So the only real test now, because if you just plug the mechatronics in, as we've done there, the car starts and runs fine, no fault codes. But Robert, Area Motorsport, he's done this same thing a few times, and he says it's just, you have a problem when you're running it through the gears. So the only time we're going to know if this is right or not, it'll be too late. So we're just going to take it to the track as it is, see how we can get it dialed in a little bit. We're not going to go mental, because this first track there just to smash around and make sure nothing falls off. But I'd like to have the short ratio box in. But if we do have a problem, we're not going to have time to get this sorted before Tuesday. So we'll just take it as it is. Paul's going to fit the subframe so we can at least get the suspension, make sure nothing's going to fall off that. A few other little bits that we've talked about before, but then it's going to be ready. And then hopefully we come back on Wednesday, fire the gearbox in, see if we have a component protection issue. If we don't, happy days. Let's get cracking with the rest. But I would have liked to be able to get rid of that dash, but we'll figure something out for that anyway. So yeah, everything's cracking. The Golf and the TT are happening at the same time, which doesn't normally happen because it's normally Paul doing everything. Paul's really nervous that Jake's working on his baby with the Golf. So if we have any major problems this year, we'll blame it on Jake, which is good for Paul. So yeah, very happy. Hopefully, the next part of this video is pulling it onto the trailer, setting off to a track day, but we'll see. We're on. Look all right? Beautiful, thank you. So, over in the fab shop, on the 4-poster, Paul's been playing again. I think he stayed till 11 o'clock on Friday night. I think that more so he could have a weekend of love. But anyway, we had to chop the top mounts out, not to gain any more caster or camber, which really we could have done, but we didn't. But this one mainly because to adjust the camber at the top, you had to drop the strut down, which were an absolute pain. Paul weren't doing that, chopped the top off, but we knew that they were a little bit weak, only being sort of 2 skins merging together, but not strong enough. So we welded that on. That gave us a bit of strength back, so we should be all right. The other thing he's put on is the Verkline. We'll have a look at that in a second, but if I don't talk about this now, I'll forget about it. The other thing we've got going on here, this is a rear shock off the Mark V, so the Bilstein Club Sport. Now these have been shortened, that's why they look as short as they are. These have been shortened right down for the Golf to limit the droop, but we're wanting to fit a similar kit onto the TTs. Now they've been on order for probably 2 months now, but shortages, Christmas, all that crap that's going on has meant that all the components to make them are not there, so we had a little bit more time to decide exactly on the lengths, how much travel we're going to have, what valving we had in and everything, and we sent the original shocks from the Golf off to get them dyno tested, and then the new shocks that come for the TTs will be set up exactly the same as the Golf because the springs are the same, the weight's very similar, centre of gravity is different, aero's a bit different, but within reason it don't make much difference. So we're going to test fit this shock back on with the correct Mark 7 top mount, which that's in here. It looks pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same as that, just the bolt spacing is different, but anyway, can't tell from there. So Paul's going to test fit that because the rear shocks on this seem to want to be shorter, which we wouldn't be able to get these to work. So it's good that we're starting from scratch with the TT setups, because then we've ended up with rather than shortening this damper down and getting rid of bump travel as well as droop, we're going to end up with more bump travel and stuff. But anyway, we'll talk about that when we get them. I digress. So let's get this up. Looks so much fresher with that new wrap bumper on, doesn't it? So Paul managed to get the subframe on. You can still see the battle scar from me ramming over the curb, so hopefully I don't do the same to this subframe. But as you can see, loads more room to work on. Changing the gearbox is going to be a lot easier when we sort this out, which will be good. The main issue we had with these were getting the width that we wanted and the angles that we wanted for the caster, while still having enough threads engaged in the rose joints. But we've pretty much sorted that out now. Paul's locked them off where we want them. We'll get all the other adjustment. Another problem Paul has had, you can't really see from here, but we've ended up having to space the rear of the disc out and space the calipers out a little bit more. But if we do it again, we'll use the caliper brackets, bells, everything from the Golf, because we know they were made, well, they weren't really made to fit this, they were made to fit an A5, but then they're made to fit this. So that's another thing to if you put in the Verkline stuff on. I'm not sure if Verkline have got the difference, what their ball joint is to the standard one, but there'll be an amount that is bigger anyway, so you need to factor that in if your disc's pretty close. So that was one of the things. The other one, the steering rack, the bolt holes for that were really, really tight, the dowels especially, but that's the beauty of these. These are made to fit in one position and it doesn't move. All the adjustments done in the threaded parts, not in the subframe walking around, which it's as expected. It's a little bit of die grinding just where the powder coat maybe a little bit thick, or maybe the just tolerances are not perfect, but it's good enough for what we need. So yeah, it's on. We should be pretty much sorted and ready for tomorrow. He's just got to do the alignment, fill out all the setup sheets and everything so that we know exactly what we went to the test with, and then we fill all the sheets out when we get there and we know exactly what we ended up with. So yeah, hopefully the next video is this car smashing around track, being super reliable, but we shall see.